A very warm welcome to everybody for this info day in webinar form for the AdMaLab, the Berlin Hardware and Materials Lab, which is, to the best of my knowledge, the first incubation program dedicated to advanced materials, and certainly in Berlin, probably in Germany, and also most probably within Europe. We're actually absolutely thrilled to be granted funds from the Berlin Senate to be running this program. And during the next hour or so, we would like to introduce the program, introduce the collaboration partners, but also share a couple of further details regarding the program itself, the application process, and of course, answer any questions that you may have. Let me start now with the host that we have, and I'm absolutely thrilled and grateful that Professor Emilist Kratogv was able to not only join the project, but also join us this morning. I leave it to him to briefly introduce himself. From my perspective, he's the master of the labs in Adlershof in Berlin, and thereby the authority to talk to as regards all technical aspects of the program. But more from you, Emil, as an introduction.
Hey, a warm welcome. Thank you for the introduction, Oliver. It's a real pleasure to have this kickoff meeting. We have been thinking about how to help, how to accelerate material research-oriented startups for a long time. And we are really grateful to the Senate of Berlin to give us this opportunity to implement this new program for startups which are hardware and materials oriented. Now, my background is actually materials science. I do hold a position at Humboldt University in the direction of materials science and device implementation and device making. So the position is called hybrid devices. I also have the pleasure of holding a position with the Helmholtz Center Berlin, also located in Adlershof. As you will see in my presentation, we are having this great environment, this vibrant environment in Berlin Adlershof with respect to basic research as well as applied research in the field of advanced material science, I would say. So my background is actually physics education. I did work in solid state physics, in printed electronics at Graz University of Technology for some years, and then got the pleasure to found a non-university research organization working in close collaboration with large scale and small companies. And we, over the time in the past 7 years in Berlin, we had contact and we have helped and developed together with a couple of startup companies or helped them to develop themselves in the interaction with working with us at Humboldt University as well as the Helmholtz Center. And from that, we have learned that in the early phase, you need access, you need the chance to validate some of your ideas. And that is what we have designed this program for. And you will see a little bit of our infrastructure in the upcoming talk, which I will give a little bit later. But now back to Oliver.
Thanks a lot, Emil. Very, very helpful to understand your background and your expertise in the field that we're discussing today. My name is Oliver Hassan. I'm Managing Director of INAM, and I'll be moderating through the presentation. First of all, let us have a look at the collaboration partners that that run the incubation program, and then we'll come to the incubation program itself and expand a bit on who can apply, what is happening during the program, and what is the selection process. As I said before, obviously, you also have the chance to ask questions. We did receive some because you had also the chance to ask questions during the registration process for this webinar. So we'll be answering them in the third part of this session. Now, let me start with introducing INAM. INAM is a non-profit organization based in Berlin with a global reach that is following the mission of bringing together all players in the advanced materials ecosystem to help innovators in that field bring their ideas to the market. What does that mean? We do a number of things. First and foremost, we try to generate collaboration between the different partners in the ecosystem. And that is, of course, the corporate world. It's small and medium enterprises, including startup, but not only. It's research institutions such as the Humboldt University, and importantly, also investors that are interested in hardware, deep tech innovations. What we've been doing for the last 5 years is mostly an acceleration program called the Advanced Materials Competition, targeted towards companies that have basically done their pilot project and that now want to look for more collaboration partners or want to slowly start to scale their business. We will complement that this year, obviously, with the Advanced Materials Lab, which we're discussing now, and we'll have a advanced materials competition scale later on in the year, which is for startups from the advanced materials space that are looking to a first structured investment round, be that Series A or a seed capital, late seed capital round. Now, so much perhaps for INAM. Let me finish by saying that we have roughly 90 members from all kinds of walks of life, as I said before, from corporate to startup, in more than 15 countries these days. And of course, we are happily accepting new members if they fit into our general mission and the technology focus that we have. Now I'd say back to you, Emil, and some more interesting information about the IRIS and the labs that you oversee.
Okay. The underlying structure and the background of what we had in order to develop all this is the so-called Integrated Research Institute for the Sciences, or short IRIS. And that enabled us in Adlershof to develop a new building. And that building, together with the expertise of the people, is actually key in order to help you to do actual work in laboratories. And I will show you a little bit about the different possibilities we have with that respect. Actually, that is currently your presentation. So I will need to go to my presentation here. Now I have full control, Oliver. I think that is what we have discussed. So it's the Integrated Research Institute for the Sciences, which is the basis, as well as the entire technology park in Adlershof. And that is something which is very important to understand. You saw some formal logos, like the IRIS logo, the Humboldt logo, the Helmholtz logo. It's for you not so important which institution is actually behind these activities. We are in close collaboration at the campus with all the departments at Humboldt University, with Helmholtz, with Bessie at Helmholtz, with the BAM and some of the others. With that, we have access directly or indirectly to almost every analytical method and every method or means in order to fabricate some prototypes. So the idea of that AdMaLab is that you come with your questions to us and we see where we can solve that question. So that is one of the basic ideas here. But now a little bit to get a little bit more concrete. Of course, you see the building here in the middle below. That is our new research building. It's brand new and it's equipped with all say, the machinery in order to fabricate prototypes, as we will see later on, do analytical work, either in electron microscopy, optical spectroscopy, or other fields. And that is, of course, the basis for all that is the work done by many of my colleagues at the Institute of Physics and Chemistry at Humboldt University. What I want to say is that if you have a very particular problem, which we can't solve, say, in the smaller round of people involved, we will find an expert for you who will be able to solve these problems. Now, what do we think? And that is based a little bit on the experience from the past with hardware and materials-oriented startups. There is, in many cases, a very good understanding of a material or of a process. But of course, if you are working in the material-oriented startup, then you lack in infrastructure, you lack in methods in order to validate your ideas, to do analytical work, to fabricate a first minimal viable prototype. So you need processing in order to get into, in our case, function. A function may it be a sensor device, may it be a new coating for a sensor device, or a similar thing. And you need to do that pretty quickly. From that point of view, I think you are well hosted with us because we hold a couple of these rapid prototyping tools in terms of printing and structuring. Now, the important thing is, I do think that after this year, when you come in with an idea, we have the methods. We have the methods as well as in our program, the personnel, the additional postdocs, we have to support you. So the idea is not that you need to get an expert in one or the other of the measurement, but that together with us, you get your questions answered. And that is what I mean by validation. Now, just to give you a little bit of an overview, we have for that an integrated lab where we can make some of your devices. We can do spectroscopy, we can do inkjet printing, we can do structuring in a clean room. You would be able to do one or the other synthetic approach in the laboratories, or if you have a question in optics, we also do have the access to optics laboratories. Now, this is how that looks in real. We have in this glove box chain and cluster, most of the basic processes you need in order to fabricate, being it a sensor, being it a light emitting device, being it a solar cell. That is all based on thin film technology, and thin film technology is available and well understood, and depending on what you would like to do, we can then find a process for you. But in many cases, it's also about analytics. That is a tool for high-end analytics of materials, but I'm pretty sure that most of you are more interested in structural analytics or optical analytics. We also do have that tools available. The other part is making a first prototype. And I do know that, that if you do not have access to the according processes, to the according materials, that might take rather long. And we did have that experience in the AdMaLab competitions, where we hosted a large number of different startups. And it simply took too long until we ordered materials, until we granted access. So we wanted to have that package available for you right in the beginning. And then we can do things as you see here. You can come with a very simple prototype, and we find ways in order to process that into small scale series, all based, of course, on additive manufacturing processes, as for example, with this printing machine here. But we have a couple of more of these machines. Now, the second part, which is important for validation, is actually microscopy, being it optical, being it electron microscopy, being it scanning probe microscopy. All these tools are available. And you're probably aware that operating one or the other of these machines takes some years to learn that properly. So the idea is not that you work on the machine, but you give us the sample, we do the analytics, and as you can see here, we probably have an electron microscope for each of your questions we can access within our research and within our research activities, together with not only the IRIS, but also the Department of Physics and some of the other partners. Now, to summarize that, and that was the architect's view on the building, and except for the different tree, which is now located here, which was located there all the time. It was opened at the beginning of this year. So what do we have available here? We have chemical synthesis, thin film deposition, printing, lithography, device making, device fabrication and characterization, and all these characterization techniques for different type of materials. Due to the pandemic situation, we didn't have an official opening, but if you get part of our program, you will also have a chance to join the grand opening in 2022. So with that, I'm at the end of my overview. I hand back to Oliver, and I'm very happy then for the Q&A to discuss which problems you have, what you would like to know about either how to make your first prototype or analyze one of your promising materials. So to that, we will then come later. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil. And now let's take a glimpse at the program as we have designed it. And of course, let me just start with one of the key whys. Why did we come up with that? And Emil touched upon that already. We've seen, working with advanced materials startups in the past years, that there is an urgent pressure at the beginning to not only have access to capital to produce the prototypes and validate them, but more stringently even to have access to the lab. And this basically brought us to the idea of bringing our experience in building startups successfully from a business point of view, together with the Humboldt Universities and more specifically Emil's experience in building companies around certain aspects of advanced materials together. Now, hence we address in the stipend not only guided access to lab space to develop, validate, and test your idea, prototype, concept, perhaps. We also are able, thanks to the Berlin Senate, to endow you with a 2,000 euro stipend per month to cover personal expenses. And beyond to these two aspects, of course, we provide training, both in formal sessions, i.e. workshops, etc., but also through mentoring. And that's key here. It's both business as well as technical mentoring in the lab to help you realize your goals that you set for yourself during the year. We will have two cohorts start in 2022, one in April and one in June, and each will run for approximately 12 months, depending on when you reach your key milestones. If you basically manage to reach them earlier, then of course you're not obliged to stay on the program. But the maximum amount of time is 12 months that we can offer you. Now, what type of applicants are we looking for? So it's basically startups, entrepreneurs, and innovators of any age that have obviously pre-experience in advanced materials. A key aspect is, and this obviously hangs together with the fact that the program is funded by the Berlin government, the participants at the time of receiving the stipend must be resident, i.e. registered in Berlin. If there is a company already that you have founded, it must not be older than 3 months. And here it is important to note that it's not the date of incorporation, which is taken as a cutoff point, but the time of your first economic activity. And as a dummy, so to say, for this point in time is the Gewerbezulassung, as we say in German, i.e. your registration with the commercial office in the local administrations and when you get your Gewerbeschein. It's also important that if there is a company already, it needs to be registered and headquartered in Berlin. So a permanent establishment in Berlin, for instance, is not sufficient. The company, let's say it's a GmbH, has to be in the register in Berlin. And finally, we accept per company up to 3 founders. And as I said before, it's funding, the 2K per month stipend is foreseen for 12 months. There is obviously also some no-goes, one of which is that the stipend period should be focused on developing your business idea / product, i.e. you should not be employed either by your own company or elsewhere. You can take on part-time jobs in the evening, but you should be focused and your full-time work should be on the incubator program. What technologies are we looking at? We're trying to get ideas and concepts which start at technology readiness level 2 and that are not further developed than technology readiness level 4. If you're not familiar with technology readiness levels, you may want to Google these, but as a shorthand explanation, TRL2 is basically the technology concept is validated, so it's more of a theoretical concept, whereas TRL4 means that the technology has already been validated in the lab. What we want to bring you to in the course of the program is basically jump 1 technology readiness level step, i.e. from 2 to 3 or from 3 to 4, or if you start with 4, from 4 to 5. That is the ambitious goal. It's not easy. It sounds like a small step, but it's oftentimes much more complex and much more difficult, as you probably will know. And finally, another exclusion grounds is that you must not have received any other startup stipends, such as Exist or any Berlin startup stipend from another incubation program. So if you've received that, you would not be eligible to this incubation program. And we do have to be very serious about these checks, as any perpetration may cause not only us problems, but also the Senate as the authority giving us the grants, the money to do the stipends. Now, we've basically split up the year into 3 trimesters. One is basically the first trimester when you start, and we'll have another glance at what is happening when on the next slide. But let me just take you through the high-level program view. The first trimester is really focused on getting your technology and your technology road mapping up to scratch. And we start with a bit of business and startup essentials, but really the first couple of months is really focused on getting your technology roadmap ready. Then for the next couple of months, we are guiding you on the one hand through workshops to get towards product market fit, i.e. we would like to see you do interviews with potential clients, get some market sounding on the ideas that you have for the product, and resonate these with industry or potential clients, as I said. And the last part is really preparing for the time after the incubation program, i.e. looking for people that you may want to hire after the program, looking for sources of finance that get you through the next developmental steps, i.e. public funding, but also business angel investments, and all the other things that you need to do, including, of course, setting up and founding a company. A key aspect, obviously, also is the question of IP strategy, which we will cover also in a separate workshop session. Now, the three strands of knowledge transfer and development of the product are obviously, on the one hand, the technical product development and validation. Then we'll have training sessions on a variety of different business, financial, and entrepreneurship topics. And these will usually consist of some workshop type of interactive training session, and then the request to come up with some deliverable, which then, once it's pre-final or drafted, can be discussed with the expert of the subject matter and then finalized. So, for instance, if you look at a financial plan, if you look at a business plan, or if you look at a IP strategy, at the end, you should have some sort of written document which comprises all the idea and which has been reflected by the relevant subject matter expert. On top of this, you will have access to technical mentoring in the lab. So there will be one or two, depending on the time when you're there, one or two technical mentors experienced in the usage of the instruments and knowledgeable about what is available in the lab, helping you to not only choose the right instruments, but also get your idea and technology forward. On top of that, you will be offered to look for a business mentor, and it's basically your choice what expertise in particular this mentor will have. Is it a general startup mentor that helps you look at all issues from a, let's say, a bit of a meta perspective, or is it a subject matter expert in, let's say, a particular product area or financial expert, etc., etc. And with these business mentors, we expect to have meetings at least once a month, during which you should discuss your progress and be able to get insights into what could be the next steps from a business perspective and what you should be doing at a given point in time. And of course, the mentors will be sounding boards for your ideas to critically reflect, etc., etc. Having been a mentor myself in various programs, of course, the role of the mentor can change. Sometimes you're more of a project manager, kind of pushing people to get to deliverables. Sometimes you're just a sounding board, and sometimes you're just a connector, and connecting people to other relevant experts or people that they need at that particular time in their business development process. Now, a bit more specifically, here you can see what we are planning during the year. As I said, the first 4 months are really, really focused on the technical development. We'll start a bit with strategy development because you will need to have some sort of insight in that already before you start in the second trimester. We'll also start slightly with startup finance just to get you ready to then work on your financial planning in month 5. We'll be having some intros to business law, and that will mainly be concerning how do I set up a company in Germany, and Berlin more specifically, what are the potential legal forms, what are the steps that I need to take if I have not done so already, etc., etc. And very early on, we also start with IP. The IP session in the first part of the stipendium program is not the fully fledged strategy, but it's just an intro session to make you aware of the potential risks that you may run into and the questions that you may want to observe during the program. That may include also drawing up some sort of document which describes what happens if you as a team, say, decide to split in the course or after the program. What happens to the IP generated? And you would want to clarify that pretty much at the beginning. So the second trimester is basically all about deep diving into the different aspects of the development process, including, of course, investor readiness, including business development, including how do I ramp up my marketing strategy, but also looking at public funding as an important source of financing for after the stipendium. And later in that trimester, we also get into the crucial things of organization development, HR and recruitment, and the fully fledged IP strategy. We'll be setting a couple of milestones in the course of the program, partly because we're required to do so, as we'll have to report them to the Senate administration, but also because we think it's important that we work towards specific goals in the course of the program. So one obviously is after month 4, the tech roadmap, in which you basically stipulate and jot down what you will be doing in the remaining 8 months with your technology. And we've allowed quite some time for that. If that is finished earlier, that's absolutely no problem. Then you have more time to work on the technology. But the end of month 4 is really the final deadline for that. In the next milestones are the value proposition, which should be looked at both through the eyes of you and the technological aspects, but also from the market perspective. So that would obviously involve some getting some soundings from the market, testing the waters, what the product will actually command, and what prices you could actually get in the market, and what the market actually is to define the market. At the end of the second trimester, we also would like to see a business plan. Of course, business plans change, but for that time, we would like to see a fully fledged business plan with all the aspects that you would want to look at. And apart from the IP strategy, which will be finalized later in the third trimester. Finally, if you have not done so prior to the program, you're of course invited to and free to found a company during the course of the program in Berlin, obviously, as I said initially, and you will obviously also get help on that when needed. Now, that's the broad overview. Of course, there's many more specifics in the individual training sessions that we'll be offering. Now let's move on to the application and selection process. We already have up and running an online application form. Just as a hint, we wanted to make that available as soon as we got the final confirmation that we can be running this program, to be able to get everybody who may have founded a company already, but did not have a chance to register elsewhere beforehand, to apply for this program. Because coming back to the 3 months rule, what counts is the date of the Gewerbezulassung to the application. So that must not be longer than 3 months. So we'll be accepting for the first batch to start in April 2022, applications until the 28th of February 2022. It's of course roughly a month before the program starts. We need some time to do some background checks. We need to do some time to do interviews, and we also obviously need to do some time planning in the labs and checking if what you want to do and what you need can actually be achieved. So that allows for some time. Of course, you're invited to submit applications earlier, and we get started on working on these earlier, and that obviously may lead to a acceptance or a result in any direction earlier than the dates indicated here. So we would plan to have the last acceptances or rejections sent out by 15th of March, so that everybody's clear and ready to start on 1st of April. Just a short reminder, as I said before, a deadline is the latest time or date by which something can be submitted. So you're absolutely invited to submit as soon as you want, and we can start working on that. One word about the selection process and the jury involved. We do have a jury consisting of business and academic experts on the subject matter. So we'll have two views basically on the applications. One of the jury member obviously is Emil. The rest will be announced in due course. Now we come to the Q&A, and you're happy to ask questions, and some we have received already. If you want to speak, we can also give you the permission to speak. Otherwise, you can write it into the Q&A, and I'll just read out now to start with the questions that we've received through the Q&A before we come to those that have been asked in advance. The first question, I think that's pretty much into your direction, Emil. Alexander asks, do you have equipment for electrochemistry, catalysis, and characterization?
I would give Alexander the allowance to speak, because for every question there is, of course, the answer is yes. But maybe he can say in 2 or 3 sentences what he is after, because catalysis and electrochemistry is a broad field. What he is after, what he needs in 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah, Alex is permitted to speak now.
Yes, hello. Sorry for the background noise. I'm just boarding an airplane. We are interested in doing some electrocatalysis, and I was just wondering if you have, potentiostats, electrodes, some equipment, just for measuring CVs, doing some electrochemical characterization.
Yes,
those sort of things.
Yeah, we have those sort of things.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the second question from Alex, if the company was registered elsewhere, UK, is it possible to participate if we're willing to move the HQ to Berlin? So, as I said previously, the company as such should be registered. The entity as such should be registered in Berlin. So you would have to be in the Handelsregister of Berlin-Charlottenburg to be able to participate. And last question that I got through the Q&A is, does the program take any equity? No, that's not planned. However, there may be the option of, in a normal deal process, get finance through an INAM entity, which yet has to be established, but that may be evolving during the next, let's say, 18 months. So it's not obligatory to give us any equity, but you may have the opportunity to get investment from us in due course. I hope that answers the questions. Then there is another couple of questions coming in through the chat. Marcus asks, will there be a conflict if I'm done with my PhD in the end of April? I don't see a program, but maybe I do not understand the questions. So maybe Marcus, I'll allow you to talk if you want to expand a bit on that.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was wondering because what was it? From my understanding, 1st of April is the contract, right?
Right.
And say if I'm only done with my PhD, like submitting my thesis and stuff like that by the end of April,
okay.
Yeah, how would that work?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's obviously two ways we can work around that. We can make exceptions to the rule in terms of start date. Yeah. Because obviously, if you're still working on your PhD thesis, you won't be able to pursue the stipend program full time. Having said that, for all exceptions in terms of changes of start dates, etc., we would have to get explicit permit from the Senate. The other much easier option would be you start in June, because we have a second cohort start then, and that may be well an option and saving us from a lot of administrative burden, let's say.
Okay, thank you.
Guoda is asking, can I participate if I don't have a team yet? Absolutely. You can start as a single participant, but as I said before, you can also, if you have team members already, you can start with a team. If you don't have a collaborator or team member now, you can, of course, look for somebody and find somebody before the end of February. They would have to apply, obviously, also if they want to receive the stipend. But to cut a long story short, yes, of course, you can participate as a single person. Then we have a question from an anonymous participant. Is it possible to receive the money once instead of monthly to be able to invest a greater amount instead of waiting a few months until the needed amount accumulates? From a disbursement perspective, no, we will have to do it on a monthly basis. But then the question begs, in what do you want to invest? And because the stipend is basically for your living expenses, paying your rent, paying your health insurance, paying what you eat and drink, etc., etc. So that's what the stipend is for. What you can do in the course of the stipend is look for investments, i.e., if you want to invest, let's say, if you're looking for money to found the GmbH, so you want to have the 25K, or you want to hire somebody already that works under the umbrella of the founded GmbH but is not part of the stipendium, then of course you can attract investments into that company. That is not a problem. But the stipend payments will be monthly, and they must be monthly, and yeah, that we cannot change, unfortunately. That's the nature of the program. I don't see any further questions in the. No, I do. So Marcus is asking, am I eligible if I'm not from the EU and I've never studied in Germany before? If so, will there be support provided with my transition to Germany? I'm currently residing in the UK. So the prerequisite is that you're registered in Berlin, that I've mentioned a couple of times now. And in terms of relocation services, obviously we can provide you with some help. But of course, a fully fledged relocation package, as you would expect it from, let's say, a corporate or something like that, we cannot provide. However, INAM is very well connected to a Berlin partner, which is the local or the Berlin agency for attracting businesses to Berlin, and they have a lot of experience and experts in helping people and businesses, much more importantly, to move to Berlin. So I'm sure that we would also be able to provide you with further assistance, if only connecting you to the right people to make your move much easier. I don't see any more live questions. Then I would come to those that we have received previously. So there is one which I think also goes to you, Emil. Does advanced materials also containing nano-enhanced materials, e.g. nanotube, carbon, graphene, etc., etc.?
Yes. There is nothing to say more. I would say advanced materials, as we do, there is no clear definition for that, but we are mostly dealing with materials which have electronic, sensoric, photonic functionality. It's not so much the construction materials. There are also some advanced materials, but definitely nano-enhanced materials are and do fall within our targeted materials classes.
Thank you very much. Now, a second question. If I apply for it, is it necessary to work 100% of my time on it, or will I be able to work on other projects? Generally, the stipend and your work on the program should be viewed as your full-time employment. If there is time in the evenings, if there's time on the weekends, of course, you can work on other projects. From a revenue or income perspective, these other projects should be a side job maximally. But still that is possible. How developed should my idea be? Now, we've said before, technology readiness level 2 is the minimum entry, and maybe Emil, from your experience, you would want to share some more on the state of the technology that we are looking for.
Well, the question of how developed the idea should be is that can be seen from a scientific, technological perspective. What goes in addition, or what is important in addition here, is that you should not only have an idea in terms of a material you would like to use for a certain purpose, where you know the material, where you know the details, where you might know how to synthesize them. It is the package. It is your idea together with an application, together with a possible market, which makes this material, for example, then also usable in a practical case. So if you have an excellent idea for a material where you absolutely could think of any use, then it might be a well-developed idea, but you then have not the case to make that or to bring that into a product or a market. So you should have a combination of, say, a good basis of your idea, maybe a technology readiness level 1, 2, and 3, meaning, for example, in case of a material, it has been synthesized once, it has been characterized. You don't know whether you can scale the synthesis. This is something one can find out, but there should be, of course, an idea for a practical need, and that needs to go together. So difficult to answer how developed it should be. It's a question how developed the entire package actually is, not the material or the sensor concept per se. It's that what we will judge and what we will look at.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for also pointing out that from a business perspective, there should be some preliminary ideas of how to commercialize the product, because that obviously is also crucial. And if you look at the application form, it's exactly also these questions that we would like you to answer at when submitting your application. Will you consider founders looking to relocate to Berlin? Absolutely. We're absolutely happy to see non-Berliners move to Berlin. So please feel welcome and do reach out if you, as I said before, if you need help in relocating. We cannot provide a full service relocation package, but we can make connections. We can give you a hand here and there and guide you in a way through the process. If there is also questions around visa applications, etc., etc. What are the benefits for applicants in this opportunity? Obviously, it's threefold. It's on the one hand, the stipend. It's certainly the guided access to the labs and the mentoring, the technical mentoring that you will get in the labs, so to develop your product further. And it's the educational side of things regarding the entrepreneurship, finance, and business relevant aspects of the program. So beyond that, of course, you'll be able to network within the Berlin startup ecosystem, i.e., you'll be able to not only make connections within INAM, but also beyond. As you know, Berlin has a number of VCs and other investors which locally screen the market for new opportunities. There's a sizable number of companies that work on these topics and maybe looking for projects in the area. And of course, as I said, through INAM and through the mentors we will provide, you'll have the opportunity to really network your way into the next phase of the development of your company. So I would think it's everything that a good ecosystem needs: finance, brains, and network.
And infrastructure.
And infrastructure, absolutely, yes. So true. Right, how do I get in contact in advance to optimize my application process? Well, I was going to ask what is meant by optimize my application process, but in any case, you can reach out to us to ask any further questions also after this webinar, and in the chat I will put the web address of the program where we have all the details, where there is a link to the application form, and obviously also on our website there is an opportunity to get in touch with us. In any case, do reach out if you have further questions, whichever channel you use. Obviously there is the website. We have a presence on LinkedIn. We are present on F-Success, if you know that platform. So there's many, many ways of getting in touch with us. If there are questions, do reach out and we'll try to get your questions answered as soon and as good as possible. And will there be a recording of the webinar? Yes, there will be a recording of the webinar, which we will make available. I will have to talk to my marketing people, or my marketing lead, Taha, who's also in the webinar, to let me know how and when that is being planned, but you will be able to retrieve all the information that we've discussed today, in addition to being able to reaching out to us.
Are there new questions in the chat in the meantime?
I don't see any further questions.
No.
If there aren't any further questions from participants, I think we can close right on time. I would like to thank everybody who participated, contributed, in particular, of course, Emil for his insights and sharing all the details. What's possible at AdMaLab, it's really, really impressive. And as I said before, if you want to reach out and if you have any further questions, please do get in touch, and we'll be trying to be as helpful as much as possible in getting you through the application process and helping you understand what can be done during the stipend program and what will be required of you and your technology. Since there aren't any further questions, I'd say thank you. Have a good and relaxing Christmas or holiday break. And I'll be looking forward to receiving lots and lots of applications to be reviewed then in January. And then maybe later see many of you as participants in the first AdMaLab cohort starting in April.